Have you ever wanted to travel to Sweden? Well, let's do the next best thing and look at my Swedish pack of Civilization 6 Magic the Gathering cards. I'm Loki the Gamer, and I welcome you to Sweden. Yes, I get to do that, not because I am Swedish, but my character is certainly Norse, so there we go, yay Loki. Sweden will have one legendary land, one leader, 3 unique builds, and that leaves one bonus card, based after a concept in the Swedish, I want to say arsenal, but really just the Swedish gimmick. There you go, that's a good word. Now, finally, if you've been looking at this chart with me for a long time, this chart that I designed for this project that conveys which Civ 6 concept should translate into which Magic the Gathering concept, then you'll notice that a culture usually translates to something rather defensive, mostly defensive. The concept is, you have grown such a beautiful culture, everyone loves you, everyone wants to travel to your lands, they're too busy doing that to wage war on you, and therefore you get to prevent them from attacking. So that's why all the culture boost usually translate to something defensive, such as tapping a creature, protection, damage prevention, and even life gain. Now, of course, damage prevention and life gain, those are truly strictly defensive. I know that tapping and protection can easily turn into an offensive weapon. You tap your opponent's creatures during your turn, suddenly they have fewer blockers, boom, you attack, you win the game. Or protection, of course, makes it so that your attackers cannot be blocked by this or that type of creature against which you have protection. So yes, they can be turned into something offensive, but they are mainly meant to be defensive. But there's something that is completely and entirely offensive that I put on this culture list, and it is the concept of milling. And if you've been a long-time viewer of this project, of this channel, then you might be wondering, when the hell will he use mill for a culture-based ability? And today's not the day. No, just kidding. It is indeed Sweden, so Sweden will turn all of its awesome culture abilities, all of its culture boosts, into milling. The logic for tying milling to culture is not really that the creatures are too busy visiting your lands to declare war on you. It's more that the player itself, the player is having its mind blown with how amazing your culture is. And having your mind blown is really going insane. And in Magic, being decked, having your library run out of cards, and losing that way has always been tied to the concept of insanity. So yeah, the opposing player is being milled by your culture because they are slowly losing their mind about how awesome your culture is. And then you win. So that's the logic here. You might think it's tenuous, but I quite like it. And yeah, so you can definitely expect lots of milling in this Swedish set. There will be the concept of diplomatic favors. I've turned that into a group hug kind of ability in this case. There will be the concept of great people. Great people have always been legendary creatures in Magic. There will be themed museums. Now, museums contain works of art. Works of art come from great people, therefore legendary creatures, and the concept of the works of arts being themed means that they come from legendary creatures that have a matching creature type. I decided that yes, matching works of art come from matching legendary creatures. And there'll be a little bit of loyalty boost that will turn into hexproof, and finally, owning different types of terrain. That is the only Civ out there that really cares, that has an ability that says the more different kind of terrains you have, the greater your reward. So I'll make you guess what magic ability was absolutely perfect for that concept. It's a keyword that's been around for quite a long time, and I'll leave you until later to guess what that is. Maybe you already know. The color identity of Sweden is, well, actually, it should be blue. It should be only blue. It is a milling type of civ. They care about knowledge and culture. Yeah, so it really should be blue. Knowledge is blue, has always been blue. but for a reason that we'll cover later. It's actually very relevant to what we just talked about having different types of terrain. I really had to find a way to give it as many colors as possible to make that ability relevant. So I gave it all colors, but through a bit of a cheat. All the spells I created are all mono blue, but the leader has all the mana pips in her text box. So if you heard me say that Rome is the only civ that I created with 5 colors, that was kind of true based on its commander's mana cost, but also not true when you consider that Sweden also has access to all 5 colors. The Swedish ability in Civ 6 is called IKEA and Meatballs. That's not true. It's called Nobel Prize. Sweden gains 50 diplomatic favors when earning great people, and receive extra engineer points from factories, extra great scientist points from universities. And finally, just having Sweden in a game unlocks the Nobel Prize competitions, which more on that later. I made a whole card just for that. But other than that, the Swedish abilities revolve entirely on great people, getting extra great people point and earning diplomatic favors when gaining great people. So I turned that into the uncommon legendary land of Sweden that simply taps for blue. And when this mana is used to cast a legendary creature spell, each player draws a card. So as we said, diplomatic favors turn into group hug. Sure enough, every player draws a card when you use this blue mana to cast a legendary creature spell. Hence, a great person. Now, I did not really focus on the land of Sweden granting you extra people point. It doesn't help you get the great people. It only taps for 1 blue. It doesn't help you ramp towards legendary creatures. It doesn't help you tutor them either. It just rewards you when you do get them in play. So yes, I made a choice. I focused on the reward rather than the extra points towards great people. And that's why I feel it is perhaps one of my better balanced legendary lands out there. Go me! Christina of Sweden, Minerva of the North, has an ability named after her title of Minerva of the North. Title or nickname, I'm not entirely sure, but yes. This is the one that makes her cheat her museums, essentially. Any museum that has 3 great works is automatically themed. It doesn't matter how mismatched the great works are. You get your awesome multiplier to your culture, to your tourism, and yeah, that is why Sweden is such a powerful cultural civ, because of all of its museums and how easy it is to theme them to get your multiplier. And you also get the Queen's Bibliothek. Don't worry about that, I turned that into a card of its own. Now, as we said, I made sure that Christina, the commander, had an ability that cared about great people, because that's where great works come from, so therefore legendary creatures. And for a museum to be themed, the great people that created these great works must have a similar type, so they must have the same creature type. And since Christina is able to cheat on that, I made sure that she was allowed to change legendary creatures types to match, and therefore get that awesome bonus. And what is the bonus? We talked about it, it's milling. So let's take a look at Christina, the magic card. She only costs 1 blue and 1 generic. Christina, Minerva of the North. She is a rare human noble advisor, 1/3. And here are all of the other mana pips. So she is indeed a mono blue card, but her abilities either cost or earn you all of the other mana symbols. So for a white or a blue, and a colorless or a black, and Christina does not tap, so you could do it again. Target legendary creature becomes the creature type of your choice until end of turn, in addition to its other types. And then you get to add a red or a green. So it costs you 2 mana, but you got 1 back. So really, you are down 1 mana, so it effectively only costs you 1. As long as you don't mind using that red or green for something else. You can't use that red-green to feed back into her ability, unfortunately. The colors don't match. And finally, there's her Bibliophile ability. Bibliophile is the name of her agenda. Legendary creatures you control have tap, target player mills X cards, where X is the number of other legendary creatures you control that share a creature type with this creature. So she is definitely a Legendary Matters type of commander. She has access to all colors, so stuff all of the legendary creatures you care in the deck, doesn't matter the color, and don't even really matter their creature type. It's better if they already match, because then you don't have to pay, but you can, if you have the mana, still use your ability to fix any mismatching creature types and boost your milling. I don't have a legendary themed deck yet of my own, and I've been wondering which commander would be best, which color. It seems like every color out there has a Legendary Matters type of effect, and not knowing how to wrap my head around the concept of a legendary deck is perhaps what causes me to create what I feel is perhaps one of the most exciting commanders for a Legendary Matters type of deck. Let me know what you think, but we're not done yet. Side note, do notice that her first ability can target any legendary creature, so you could potentially throw Basil II, all of the Byzantine cards in her deck, since again she has all 5 colors, and then use her ability to help juice up Basil II's powers. Don't forget, if you haven't seen the Byzantine video, my Basil II effectively converts other players to his religion by changing their commander into a creature type that matches his commanders. And in the Byzantine set, of course, I created a few effects that actually do that, but Christina is yet another way of doing that. So yeah, you can't stick Christina in a Byzantine deck, unfortunately, because of all of her colors, but you could do the opposite. You could stick all the Byzantine cards into a Christina deck and maybe find a way to reliably bring all of those abilities online, and then use Christina's creature type swapping ability to help the Byzantine convert their opponents and gain super major extra combat boost. Anyway, I think it's a stretch, but it's fun to think about. The Carolean is the unique unit of the Swedes. It is an anti-cavalry, so you can expect some bonuses when fighting against horses and mounts. And it has more unit than the Pike and Shot, which it replaces, so more movement. Expect the Flash ability or Haste, but because it's blue, I use Flash. And interestingly, it gets fighting bonuses for any unspent movement. So really, in Civ 6, you have a choice. You either attack right away, so have a whole lot of unspent movement, so don't move and attack right away, you get a bigger punch, or move a whole bunch and then attack, but then you won't get any bonuses. So I turned that into something that I think is really appropriate: Kicker. Same principle. You can choose to use all of your movement, or in this case mana, through the extra cost of the Kicker in order to get a boost, the Kicker boost, or you can choose to spend your movement, act quicker, in this case come out sooner, cast the spell sooner by paying less and therefore not using the Kicker, so you won't get the military bonus in this case, but you will come out quicker because you decided to move a lot. So there, I think it's a perfect use of that ability of Kicker to represent the concept of either spending your movement and being weaker, or saving your movement and therefore being stronger. You've got therefore a card that comes out for 3 mana, 1 blue and 2 generic. It's a Human Soldier, common, 2/2, Flash. That's how indeed I turned the extra movement. And Kicker for 1 blue and 1 generic. You get a +1/+1 counter if you pay the Kicker. And because it is an anti-cavalry, it's got the final ability: whenever this creature blocks a mount or a horse, it gains double strike until end of turn. So I chose to only give it that when it blocks, not when it becomes blocked by. Then we have the Open Air Museum, the unique infrastructure of Sweden. It grants the city it's in extra loyalty, so you can expect some hexproof, as we talked about earlier. And it's got that awesome power that grants culture, and don't forget that culture means mill for Sweden. And it grants culture based on how many different types of terrain you have a city founded on. And here it is, the concept that Sweden collects different types of terrain. And did you guess? Did you guess? Did you guess? I use domain, of course. Domain rewards you for having as many basic land types as possible. So that's why, ultimately, I gave Sweden all 5 colors. So you have access to putting swamps and forests and mountains and plains and islands, obviously islands, in your deck. And when you have all 5, then your domain is at its maximum, and you'll get top production from your open air museum. Of course, you don't need to put the open air museum in a Sweden deck. You can just focus on blue and blue only. If you are really making this into a mill deck, then maybe just put blue, put a whole bunch of legendary creatures that already have the same creature types, so you don't even need to use Christina's creature changing abilities. Or maybe occasionally use it by putting a few dual lands in there and a few splashes of other colors. I don't know. But basically, you don't have to use the open air museum in a typical Swedish deck, but you can, and maybe other decks might want to use it. So for 1 blue and 1 generic, you've got this common aura. Of course, it's a land aura, like so many other similar improvements on the land. And there's the loyalty bonus. Enchanted Land has hexproof. And there's the domain. Enchanted Land has pay 1 and tap it. Each opponent mills 2 cards for each basic land type among lands you control. So obviously you're going to have some islands, one would think. So you will at least mill each opponent 2, and when your domain is complete, then you'll mill your opponents 10, all for 1 mana and tap the land. So that's pretty neat, and it's each opponent, not just one. So I think that's a pretty nice, worthy addition in a domain-styled deck. I've never built that. I don't know what it would take to build a domain deck. I always thought that domain was a fairly weak ability that you have to just jump through freaking hoops to actually get your domain high enough for it to be worthwhile. It would be different if all of the domain cards were insanely powerful. If you have 1 land type, it's already quite nice. 2, better. 3, insane. 4, just out of this world. 5, instant win. If the domain cards were that good as I just said it, then maybe it'd be worth it. But I look at the domain cards that we do have and I just roll my eyes. No, that doesn't seem to be worth it to build a deck around having every land type on the battlefield. I know that there are ways to cheat to that, but to do it the traditional way, having only actual basic lands or dual lands with the basic land types, then managing a full domain, it seems pretty difficult. And just there aren't enough domain cards, period, in Magic. And the fact that I added just 1 extra one that, of course, is only a fan-made, homemade card, that doesn't help to tip the scales very much, does it? So, yeah, maybe if they bring back Domain, if they make it easier to achieve a full Domain, maybe that could totally be a deck. And most importantly, if they make a commander that cares. So, yeah, caring is really half the battle. So, if there was a legendary creature that really did care about having many different basic land types, then we would rethink, all of us would rethink making a domain-themed deck. It would be neat, just not now. If you can change my mind, go right ahead, show me your card list for your domain deck, and I will just be amazed. Thank you very much in advance for that. Now let's take a look at what is next. Let's see. Ah yes, the Queen's Bibliothèque. Well, that is a very straightforward building that goes in the government plaza, and it just gives you a crap ton of great people points. That's it. So I turned that into an artifact that allows you to ramp for legendary creatures and also tutor for them. So it's a neat little mana rock, a 2-drop common artifact that says, at the beginning of your upkeep, put a patronage counter on this artifact. Then if it has 3 or more patronage counters, remove them all and search your library for a legendary creature card, reveal it and put it in your hand, then shuffle. And it also taps to add a patronage counter on this artifact, and taps to add 1 mana of any color. Spend this mana only to cast legendary creature spells. So there we go, ramping towards your legendary creatures, and the patronage counter is a slow, windy way of eventually tutoring for a legendary creature. Very neat, all self-contained, and perfectly suitable in any Legendary Matters deck. And that finally leaves the one aspect of Sweden that isn't really a Swedish power. You know, Sweden is never going to crack its knuckles and go, "Wahaha, now I am winning the game because of the Nobel Prize competition." No, it's just something bonus that unlocks when Sweden is in the game. So that's a neat touch by the makers of the game, and I turned it into a card. Indeed, it was my privilege to do so. I turned it into a saga, a rare saga that drops for 2 blue and 1 generic. And every step of the saga represents a different Nobel Prize. First, you've got Nobel Prize in Physics, then Nobel Prize in Peace, and the Nobel Peace Prize, and finally Nobel Prize in Literature. And what's interesting is that each one is a competition. It rewards the player or players that have the most of such and such thing. And of course, I made it relevant to the topic at hand. I used my equivalency chart to make sure that the reward was granted to the one that had the most of such thing that mattered to the topic at hand. And interestingly, the order in which I put them and the reward that I gave to each step makes it so that the winner of a step is likely to win the next step. Or at least they have certainly a leg up. So let's review what I did here. First step is Nobel Prize in Physics. Players who control the most colorless or blue legendary creatures each gain 9 life. So in the game, in Civ 6, the Nobel Prize in Physics is a competition for whoever can generate the most great people point within the allotted time period. So great people are of course legendary creatures, as we talked about, and I felt that scientists would be best represented by blue people, because blue is knowledge, science, but also colorless legendary creatures, because those are artifacts. Those are, well, they themselves are, works of science. So the scientists that build them matter, and the scientific creations themselves also matter. So colorless and blue legendary creatures matter. Whoever has the most wins the prize, and the prize is 9 life. And oh, won't you look at that, step 2, the Nobel Peace Prize, is player with the most life, each scry 4. So you see, if you play Sweden, or honestly, whatever deck, and you put this in your deck, it's conceivably because you have a whole lot of legendary creatures, blue and colorless specifically, and you intend to easily win step 1. And if you do, then you have that much more chances of winning step 2 because you just gained 9 life. So therefore you might indeed easily scry 4, get the reward of scrying 4. And then finally, step 3, the Nobel Prize in Literature. Players with the most cards in their library each draw 3 cards. Well, that has nothing to do with the reward of step 2, nothing to do with having scried 4, but everything to do with putting this in a milling deck. So if you do put this in a mill deck, then you will for sure win step 3. Because you will have a normal amount of cards in your library, and all your opponents will be whittled down near insanity with, 17 freaking cards left in their library, so you will win step 3 and gain the reward of draw 3 cards. Hooray for you! So I think that is a neat little saga. I love designing sagas. And I also like making group hug cards that look like they're group hugs, but really, if you play your cards right, if you've put this card in your deck, it's probably because you intend to most likely garner all of the rewards yourself. So it's not the first card that I've done like that, and I think it makes for interesting cards. I prioritize interesting cards over straight up powerful ones. Unless, of course, I'm designing lands, in which case I have no idea how to make them balanced. Except for that Swedish land at the beginning that we saw. I thought that was very neat and balanced. So let me know, would you make this Swedish deck? Would you use Christina as a mill-centric commander? Which other cards would be a definite in this deck? The fact that unlike most milling deck, she has access to all 5 colors, would that open doors that other mill deck don't have? And do you agree with the fact that I gave her all 5 colors just for the sole purpose of making the Open Air Museum worthwhile? Really, the original version of this Swedish set had Christina a mono blue, truly mono blue, not only in her mana value but also in her identity. She was truly all blue, baby. And the Open Air Museum was therefore nearly useless in a Swedish deck, and that just didn't sit well with me, so I found a way to give her all 5 colors. I could have settled for 3 or 4 maybe, but I really wanted the Open Air Museum to fulfill its destiny in a Swedish deck. But do you think that that was a mistake? Maybe I should have settled for Sweden being awesome on their own, but for the Open Air Museum to simply not belong in a Swedish deck, and instead belong in a number of different decks, but not that one. Do you think that was a mistake, or was it a good idea to make the museum usable in a Sweden deck? I mean, honestly, if it wasn't usable in a Sweden deck, in which other deck would it have been useful? I mean, there are few decks other than mono blue, blue or black maybe, that care about milling, so the Open Air Museum would have been useless just altogether if I didn't make Christina 5 colors. That's my idea here, that's my reasoning. And finally, do tell me, which other legendary creatures would you put in a Swedish deck? She has access to all of them. Do you want to concentrate on one creature type so that you don't have to rely on her creature type changing ability, save your mana for other things and not that ability? In which case, which type or types do you want to focus on? Let me know. There's so many ways to take this. You have, again, all colors. Which other legendary matters, staples, would you stick in there? There are so many out there, and given that I still have not made my own legendary themed deck, I don't know them all from the top of my head. So let me know what you would do with Christina if she were a real card, and in the meantime, I give you a very real farewell. I'll see you later, and please drop me a very, very real like and a super real subscribe, and I will give you a majorly real thank you.